Hello, how are you? I hope you are really well. I am going to be doing an impromptu podcast recording today. And I thought, do you know what? Rather than just sit here in the office at home on a wet, drizzly Saturday morning, I thought, do you know what? Let's go live and let's broadcast it as a video at the same time. So if I have just popped up on your phone, hello. You probably weren't expecting to see me. Yeah, I thought I'd do it live as a video as well as just sat here in the office on my own recording it. So I'm surrounded by paper because true to form, whenever I do a deep dive episode for the podcast series, I want to give as much value as I possibly can around a specific topic. So if you've been a follower of the podcast for a while, you'll know that I did a deep dive session on money. I think it was in the last series. I've done a deep dive about all sorts of things. So today is going to be a deep dive session into goal setting and getting goals the NLP way. So I thought, do you know what? If you are around on a Saturday, I would give you the opportunity to come hang out with me for the next hour. If you would want to do that, or dip in and out, obviously, I appreciate you hadn't planned to be here with me. But I thought I'd give you the chance to sit in and listen while I record the final episode of Series 6 of the podcast. So do say hello as you're watching. The sad thing about technology these days is I'm live streaming live in our Facebook podcast community. And I'm live streaming on YouTube. And if you just say hello and you don't tell me who you are, then I have absolutely no idea who's commenting. So good morning to whoever it is that said, hey, Laura, on Facebook. But it just says Facebook user, which is a bit sad, right? Because I can't actually say thank you to you properly. So if you are watching this live stream, then welcome. Lovely to have you here with me. You are going to want a pen and a piece of paper. In fact, probably a couple of bits of paper to do some of the exercises which I'm going to be sharing in this podcast episode. So I'm super excited. As I say, surrounded by paper, but you can't see that on the live stream, so that's good. So very shortly then, what I'll do is I will start the official episode for the podcast. I am recording it live. Yeah, and then it will be officially released as always, probably next week, once I have had it all edited. So big love to you if you are here with me this morning. And without further ado, I'm going to get on and record the final episode of Series 6 of the podcast. And it's lovely to have you here with me. So, hey, and welcome to the final episode of Series 6 of the NLP Talks podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. Pull up a chair. Maybe if you're listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, pause it, go make a cup of tea, because this is going to be an episode you are not going to want to miss. If you know anything about me, as Laura Evans, your host here on the podcast and the lead NLP trainer at Unleash Your Potential, if you know anything about me, you will know that I always love to bust myths, to share top tips and inspiration. And you might be thinking, Laura, this is a bit of an odd time to be talking about goal setting. Surely you should have done this podcast episode before Christmas. Well, I've got two responses to that. Is one, yes, I had planned to do it before Christmas, but here in the UK, lots of people over Christmas went down with this virusy flu. I hope you escaped it, but I got it. And then I actually sat there thinking one day, do you know what? I actually want to help people set really, really, really good goals and actually make 2023 their best year yet. And I know, and I'm going to share the stats with you, I know that New Year's resolutions do not work. Okay. They work for, well, I say they don't work. They work for very, very few people. I'm going to share why in this podcast episode. Now, before I get going, there are a few housekeeping things I want to cover for this episode, which is going to be a bit different to all the other episodes of this series. And that is that you are going to want a pen and you are going to want some paper, because you are going to get involved with doing some exercises during this podcast episode. Now, although our listenership all the way around the world predominantly are adults, this is actually an episode that you could do with anybody. You could do it on your own. You could do it with your life partner. You could do it with your family, because we're going to be talking about goal setting in general. And of course, you can set a goal in any area of your life. So this is going to be one of those processes. Now, If you are watching the live stream as I'm recording it, I'm really sorry there are not documents available for you to download and use. If you are listening to this podcast episode on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you're listening, then the good news is this. I will have released the documents that support this. So all you have to do to get access to the documents before we start is to go to nlptalks.com. So go ahead and go over to nlptalks.com, scroll down the homepage to find this goal setting episode on the website. Click on that, and then in there you will find the links to download the PDFs, which I'm going to be using in today's podcast episode. Now, hot off the press, just to let you know before I actually get going, we were notified this week that the NLP Talks podcast is in the top 25% of all podcasts. How do they know that? Because of the lovely people like yourselves that listen to this episode. So huge Laura love from me to you for being a follower of this podcast episode, because without you, there would be no podcast, because I only do it for you. If no one listened, I'd stop doing it tomorrow. But the fact that I know that it adds value to people all the way around the world is why I keep doing them. So anyway, huge love and thanks to you for being a follower and a listener of this show. So without further ado, let's get going with goal setting, why I think most goal setting doesn't work, and why I think the way we do it with NLP will give you the edge. Now, most people set goals on the 31st of December. Did you? We call them New Year's resolutions, but essentially, if you're anything like I used to be, you'd get to the 31st of December, you'd see the clock ticking down to midnight, and you'd be there with your friends and families, maybe with a glass of your favorite drink, and then think to myself, oh my goodness, in a minute, it's going to become midnight. Oh my goodness, in a minute, it's going to become a brand new year. People are going to ask me what my New Year's resolutions are. Oh my goodness, what should I pick? And I remember doing that exact thing on a dance floor once in the middle of a club when I was back in my 20s, many years ago now, thinking, oh my goodness, I need a New Year's resolution. I can't get to midnight and not have a New Year's resolution. And so I plucked something out of the air. It got to midnight. Happy New Year, as we all do. And then I was like, okay, good, I've got my New Year's resolutions. But here's the thing. Do you know statistically how long New Year's resolutions last for? Any ideas? Because let me tell you, it's not very long. So bearing in mind that these New Year's resolutions usually get set on the 31st of December stroke the 1st of January, right? There is all sorts of research as to when they end. So I'm sat here in the office at home recording this live for you on Saturday the 14th of January. It'll probably come out next week on Wednesday the 18th or Thursday the 19th of January. And by then, most people will have given up on their New Year's resolutions. So I did a bit of research because I'm fascinated by this. So according to one piece of research, Friday the 12th, in this particular year, this is going back in it, but let's not call it Friday the 12th. Let's call it the 12th of January, is known as Quitter's Day. Get that? The 12th of January is known as Quitter's Day because the research says that for most people that set New Year's resolutions, motivation starts to falter on the 12th of January. Another piece of research that I found said that actually January the 19th is the day that most New Year's resolutions will be abandoned. Now, pick a date in January, but I've seen many, many bits of research that say that come the end of January, most New Year's resolutions have been abandoned. And how come? Because we all have good intention, and we know in NLP intention is everything. What you focus on is what you get. You'll have heard me say that 100 times over on this podcast. But the challenge is this. Human beings are habitual creatures and we don't do change very well. Let's be honest. We don't. We're habitual. Our life is full of patterns. Our life is full of repetition. And at the end of the day, if you try to achieve your New Year's resolutions through willpower alone, well, good luck is what I've got to say to that. Because I know from personal experience and from the experience of hundreds of people which I've helped, willpower alone is not going to cut the mustard, folks. It really isn't. Like another bit of research here. So Richard Wiseman, and this article that I found on the internet, he did some research, and in America, 50% of all Americans set New Year's resolutions, right? So I'm going to be confident that's pretty consistent around the globe, wherever you're listening to this. But 88% of all those New Year's resolutions, from the half of the American people that actually set them, are going to fail. So that's huge numbers. That's millions and millions of people. And the reason he says that people fail at New Year's resolutions is because they attempt to do this with willpower alone. We don't like change. And if you introduce dramatic change very, very quickly under normal circumstances, often people become overwhelmed and they're not able to work these New Year's resolutions and the actions they need to take into their everyday life. Well, that is unless you've got NLP in your back pocket. Because with NLP, if you've been a follower of the podcast, you'll know that we can change habits in minutes. So, if you take a swish pattern, for example, and if you don't know what a swish pattern is, go back to series 2 of the podcast, and you will be able to see there was a whole episode about the swish pattern. But that enables you to change how someone feels or acts in a specific context. If you have this type of toolkit at your disposal, then you can change very, very quickly, and you can change for the long term. Now, I think it's quite interesting, right, looking at New Year's resolutions, because I got another article here, right, off the internet. And here it says that in 2050, so granted a few years ago, the top 10 New Year's resolutions were as follows. Now I'm going to read them, right? And I want to know how many, okay, in your head, how many of these have you ever set as a New Year's resolution? Because I looked through the list and I went pretty much most of them. Number 1, lose weight. Number 2, get organized. Number 3, spend less and save more. 4, enjoy life to the fullest. 5, staying fit and healthy. 6, learning something exciting. 7, quitting smoking. 8, helping others in their dreams. 9, falling in love. 10, spending more time with the family. I mean, how many of those can you tick off? Another list. Top 10 resolutions. Get organized, help others, learn something new, get out of debt, more time for the family, more time for myself, quit smoking, lose weight, exercise. I mean, listen, it's fairly consistent, but it's fairly consistent that we don't get what we want. So I'm here today to talk to you about how we can increase our opportunity of getting what we want. Because New Year's resolutions is just another way of saying goal setting. And the problem is New Year's resolutions usually have absolutely zero process that sits behind the goal setting. One of the reasons why it doesn't work, because if you've been a follower of my work for some time, you will know that there are 2 parts to your mind. Yes, there is the conscious mind, the logical thinking part of your mind that as adults we get taught to use, evidence-based scientific processes, that kind of stuff. And then there is the unconscious mind, which is actually the larger part of your mind that actually controls your behavior. So in the training room, and you'll have heard me discuss this on a podcast before, we use the idea of an iceberg to depict this idea of our mind. And I think Freud was the first person to talk about this. But the smaller part is the conscious logical mind, right? So you set a goal with your conscious mind. However you do it, you consciously set a goal, yeah? However, it is your behavior, those patterns of behavior, that actually determine whether or not you ever get your goal. So if I'm in the training room, I always draw a diagram for everybody on the flip chart because at the start, it's really easy to take steps towards your goal. So say my goal was to get fit and healthy this year. For a period of time, I can use willpower to help me make progress in that direction. So I can say, my goal this year is to be fit and healthy. I must go to the gym. I must eat more healthily. I must not eat the chocolate. I must throw away all the rest of the quality street that are in the cupboard. I must empty the cupboards of all of the crisps and all of the snacks that are left over from Christmas. And I mustn't do all of that. And I must do this and I mustn't do that. And I must do this and I mustn't do that. And I must do this and I mustn't do that. And if you go into any of the big coffee chains that exist around the world, you'll know that they understand mindset very well, and they have you queue for your drinks. But they don't just have you queue for your drinks anywhere in the store. You queue for your drinks by the cakes. Isn't that true? So you queue by because they know that actually there are these unconscious messages that just start to filter into your mind. And all of a sudden you get to the checkout, and it always cracks me up. You get to the checkout and someone will suddenly go, I'll have a skinny latte and I'll have a cookie with it, or I'll have a slice of cake with it. And I'm like, how? Like, how does that work? Because, at the end of the day, you've just made a decision that goes against the goal which you've set yourself, but it's a habit. It's the fact that we just don't do change very, very well. So what I would like you to do, this is the first exercise I'd like you to do. So grabbing your pen and a piece of paper, and if you didn't do that at the beginning of this podcast episode, I promise you're going to want it. And I'd like you to take a piece of paper, and I'd like you to answer a couple of questions. I'm going to say them a couple of times so that you can scribble them down. It all focuses on this idea in this very famous quote, and I can't remember who said it, but forgive me, because the quote is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And what most people fail to do at the start of any goal setting process is review what has worked well and has not worked well in the past. Because this podcast episode, this very moment in time when you are either joining me live or listening to this on the podcast series, this could be the deciding moment where something amazing could happen for you. And what if it was? What if it was? So I'd like you just to take a moment and pause the podcast episode and ask yourself the question, over the last 12 months, what's gone well? What hasn't gone quite so well? And based on your review of last year, what would you do differently going into this year? So for the last 12 months, what went well in relation to any goals you set? What didn't go as well? And what would you do differently in this forthcoming year as you move forward? It's an interesting thought, right? Now, if you follow me on Instagram, which, by the way, if you want to get to know a bit more about me and who I am and what I'm into, Instagram is where I hang out personally. If you want to follow all the professional stuff, go find me on LinkedIn, Laura Evans on LinkedIn. On Instagram, you'll find me as Laura Evans _NLP. So if you just grab your phone and go on to Laura Evans _NLP, you will find my Instagram profile. And this is where I post a lot of inspirational stuff. And I just want to read you a post which I put out on the 28th of December. And it says here, and you can go and find this on my Instagram account, it says 5 thought-provoking questions. It's all focused on, are you where you want to be? Because that period of time between Christmas and New Year is like a bit of a no man's land, isn't it? Like Christmas is done, but New Year's is not done yet, and like not a lot really happens. But I wanted to give people a thought, and this post I put out, oh my God, thousands of people saw it. It was amazing. But I'm going to read you the 5 thought-provoking questions, because I think this will also help get your mindset in a better place for setting goals for 2023. So I'm going to read them to you. Now, if you've got your pen and your piece of paper still handy, maybe turn over the piece of paper and do this exercise on the back. And again, you can pause the episode and really ponder over these questions. So I'm going to read you the 5 questions that I put on the social media post if you go and find me on Instagram. So question number 1 was this. If your life ended in 2023, would you be content with who you have become and what you have accomplished in your life to this point? I mean, isn't that a kick in the guts, right? When you listen to that, let me read it again. If your life ended in 2023, would you be content with who you have become and what you have accomplished in your life to this point? I mean, that takes some thinking, right? So pause the episode and have a little think about that. Question 2. If you were given 12 months to live from today, what would you be willing to do to maximize your time left? Oh, I mean, I hope it happens to none of us, but what if it did? Question again. If you were given 12 months to live from today, what would you be willing to do to maximize your time left. Now, a lot of us are motivated by deadlines, right? And that is probably one of the scariest imposing deadlines you could ever set yourself. But what it does is it gives you a focus. It gives you a time frame. It makes you realize that life is not forever. I mean, here's the thing. There are only two things in life that are certain. One, that we'll all die, and two, that we'll all end up paying taxes. They're the only two certainties in life as far as I'm concerned. So at some point, I'm going to leave this planet. You're going to leave this planet. But if you were up against it and you only had 12 months to go, what would you be willing to do? And I bet you it's way more than you think before you put that deadline. Now, the follow-on third question. Again, you can pause this podcast episode at any time to stop and reflect on these questions. What's stopping you from doing those things right now? So from question 2, as in what would you be willing to do? Question 3 leads on from that, which is what's stopping you from doing those things right now? That's an interesting question. Because be honest. Is it you that is stopping you? Because I bet you it is. Is it your mindset? Is it your beliefs? Is it the patterns of the past? Is it that you're taking the past and projecting it into the future and going, because it was like that in the past, it can't be different in the future? That is simply a decision. And that is the mindset work we do with NLP. So many of us have old stories that we keep telling ourselves. So many of us. Like in the past, I might not have been able to do X, Y, and Z. If I sit here in the present moment with you here right now, and I'm still telling myself that story, that because that's what's happened in the past, that's going to be what happens for me now and is likely to happen for me in the future. Can you see how that's going to stop me getting the success that I want in my life? Because the power of your belief is everything, as Henry Ford said, and I think he took this quote from someone else, but as Henry Ford is quoted as saying, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're absolutely right. Now, I'm going to talk shortly about something called RAS, Reticular Activating System. This is critical for goal setting. But in terms of this very question that we're pondering right now, what stops you from doing those things right now? You've got to be honest with yourself, folks. You've got to be honest with yourself. What stops you? I believe human beings are hugely resourceful. The pandemic taught us that. We all managed to dig deep and do things that we never thought perhaps we were able to do. Human beings are hugely resourceful. But what some of us are not good at is being in a resourceful state. What do I mean by a resourceful state? I mean believing things are possible, emotionally being in a good place, looking for the good in the world, gratitude practices, all of those things, all have been proven to help us improve our quality of life. Question number 4. Now, this is one you're going to need to think about. Who or what is it that you are not being, doing, or having that you want to be, do, or have? Now, for those of you watching the live stream, this is, just lost it. There we are. Hang on. I don't know if you can see that. I don't think you can. So anyway, if you're listening podcast, no disadvantage because I couldn't show anyone. But who/what is it that you are not being, doing, having that you want to be, do, have? So you're going to have to write this out so that it makes sense. Who/what is it that you are not being, doing, having that you want to be, do, have? Oh my goodness, I'm struggling to say it. Let me say it as I would say it. Who or what is it that you are not being, doing, or having that you want to be, do, or have? You got to read that a few times and really think about that one. And then the final question, the very final question that was in this series that I put up on Instagram. What would you need to start, continue or maintain, or stop in order for this to all happen for you? So this is the type of stuff I put up on Instagram. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, then Laura Evans _NLP, come hang out with me on Instagram and come and get some of the regular inspiration that I share from the training room and my own stuff. But they're interesting questions, right? Interesting questions. Okay, right. Let's talk a little bit then about the mindset then around goal setting, because I want to give you some theory that sits behind all of this, and I'm going to give you a number of different practices which you could use to set some goals for this year to increase your chance of success in 2023. Okay. Now, in NLP, and you'll have heard this on the podcast before, I talk a lot about something called the cause and effect equation. And I just want to pause to talk about this in relation to goal setting. Like I say, if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you'll be familiar with this idea. But this is one of the themes of NLP. So we have 4 themes of NLP. They are like one of the underlying sets of principles. And the very first one is called the empowerment theme. So the 4 themes are empowerment, projection is projection. I can't even say it. Perception is projection. Easier to explain than say. The power of your beliefs, and that your beliefs are not true, but you act as if they're true. And also you've got this idea of responsibility. And there's also kind of a 5th one about the mind-body connection. Anyway, I'm not going into all of those today. I just want to focus on the empowerment theme. Because if you want to succeed in achieving your goal this year, you have to empower yourself to take inspired action and steps towards your goal every single day. Every single day. Now, the cause-effect equation is a continuum. So people are either at the effect side of life or the cause side of life. And it's like a continuum. Okay. So when people do effect side thinking, they are often full of reasons and excuses. Why not usually? They often will blame other people, circumstances, the economy, the environment, but they are at the effect of something or someone else. So it's quite, I often refer to it as like the sitting duck routine, as in I'm just bobbing along on the water, just waiting to see who's going to shoot at me, or, a cork bobbing on the sea. Now, it's quite interesting. I learned an analogy very recently about a jellyfish. Would you like to hear about the jellyfish story? Okay, no, I'm going to tell you about the jellyfish story. And I can't claim this to be my own. I learned this from a gentleman called Connor Healy. I learned this idea of this jellyfish. And I just think it describes us as human beings amazingly. Now, jellyfish float in the sea, yes? And the current takes them all the way around the countries they live around, and sometimes even further afield. But they don't swim. They don't control the action that they take. They just float. They have no real sense of direction. They just float. And whilst going with the flow is easy and it takes no effort on the part of the jellyfish, the problem is one day that jellyfish might wake up, metaphorically, of course, but wake up and find itself in the Antarctic, cold and alone. And it wakes up and thinks, how did I get here? If you're the type of person that just bobs along in life and just gets blown from pillar to post, one day you might wake up in a place where you're like, hang on, how did I get here? How did I get here? What's this all about? And if you're really honest, being a jellyfish, being blown around, the current taking you wherever it goes, is probably not going to give you a fulfilled life. I know it wouldn't for me. You could, of course, choose to be a shark or a tuna fish or a salmon. And these types of fish have a destination. So here in the UK, we have a lot of salmon. Well, not so much, sadly, these days, but we have salmon in a number of our rivers. And the salmon always go back to the same place to breed. And they have to navigate all sorts of obstacles. They have to navigate rivers, currents. They go against the current. They swim upstream. They have to navigate rocks and waterfalls and all of those things. But they have a very, very, very clear focus. And they do not stop until they get there. There will be obstacles on the way. They have to navigate them. If you've ever sat by a river that has salmon in it, you'll notice that they don't jump the little waterfalls every single time first attempt. They don't. They will give it a good go and they'll swim up at full pelt towards the little waterfall and they'll give it their absolute all. And they might land on the rocks. And then you'll see them wiggle their body as they try and maneuver themselves back into the water. Does that salmon give up at the first attempt? Sure as hell it doesn't. Because it backs up, it catches its breath, and it goes again. And it is those salmon that are tenacious, that have the drive, the energy, the passion, the desire to get to where they want to go. They're the ones that stand the best chance of getting there. Don't you agree? So if you're someone that spends a lot of their time doing what I call effect side thinking, you're more like the jellyfish. You're being blown around. You're blaming everybody else and everything else for the circumstances where you find yourself. Isn't it time you took back control? You know, I always say to people, I use this analogy a lot as well on our courses in the training room. Be honest with yourself. If your car was, your life rather, was metaphorically a car, are you sat in the back seat letting someone else drive the car? Because you only come into this life with one person and you only leave with one person, and that's yourself. Surely you owe it to yourself to get out of the back seat of your car and back in the driving seat. You see, people come and go in our lives. Some people that we love and adore, and we would love them to live forever and be with us. But the truth is that we are all going to go at some point. But that vehicle of your life, that car, the only person that can really drive it is you. The only person that really understands it is you. The only person that can call the shots and make the difference is really you. But if you're currently living your life sat in the back seat of the car, I think this could be your wake-up call. Because otherwise you're going to end up being like the jellyfish. You're going to end up with someone else driving the car and taking you to a destination that you don't want to go to. Now, the other side of the cause-effect equation is cause. It is being at cause. So what does cause-side thinking mean, and what's that all about? Well, cause-side thinking is where we are taking responsibility, where we are having a can-do attitude, where we find a way. You know, at the end of the day, we're in what I call currently here in the UK an economic winter. Okay, so people are talking a lot about economic crisis and people, struggling financially. And if you watch the news, I suggest you stop because they're just talking the economy into a recession. But here's the thing: there are still people out there with money in their pocket. As a small business owner, if I put myself in those shoes for a moment, there are still people out there with money. There are still people out there buying our courses. I'm running a course just next week and we've got, I think, 10 or 12 people on it. So there are still people out there. Am I working harder than I've ever worked? Absolutely. Am I very focused on my goal? You bet. But I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do everything. And so my job is not to sit here and go, poor me, oh, good, look at me, this is just ridiculous and this is awful. My job is to look at what can I influence. My job is to look at what difference can I make? What action can I take? I can't miraculously give everybody in the whole of the UK a load of cash in their bank. I can't do that. It's not my gift to give. What I can do is help people with their money mindset. What I can do is help people set better goals and increase the chances of them getting the things that they want in their life. That is absolutely something I can do. Okay, great. So now start thinking about how do I do that? And blah, blah, blah. And off we go. And now we're taking inspired action. So you've got to be honest with yourself, folks. Where are you? Predominantly, where are you on the cause effect equation? Now, I'm not naive enough to think we can all be at cause all the time. That's not life. It's just not going to happen. There are times when I slip out of core side thinking with all of my personal development training and expertise. It's just life, But what I am is hugely self-aware. What I am is aware of when I get myself into a pattern of thinking when I think to myself, hold on, this is not going to solve this problem. It is not going to help me move forward. I need to think of a way. I need to look at this differently. I need to look at this problem from a different angle. I need to do my best to find a way. Now, Tad James, who was the head of the NLP, the governing body that accredits all my courses, I love this quote that he came up with. And it says, if you are not 100% at cause, you will miss the mark, i.e. in this case, your goal, by the percentage that you are misaligned. If you are not 100% at core, taking responsibility, can-do attitude, find a way, taking inspired action, doing what you can, you will miss the mark or your goal by the percentage that you are misaligned. So if you are 95% of the time at course, you've introduced a 5% risk that you may miss your goal by about 5%. Let's put it in simple terms. If you are 50-50, half the time you're at cause and half the time you're at effect side, you've now got a 50-50 chance, right, of taking the action that's needed to be able to get your goal. It's absolutely fascinating. Now, bearing in mind that actually most of our programming, remember, we're habitual. By the way, neuroscientists tell us that we run 10 to 20,000 automatic programs and patterns every single day, most of which you're not aware of, right? So, for example, how you brush your teeth this morning. You don't consciously brush your teeth, at least I don't. You go in the bathroom, you're thinking about 101 other things that you've got to do, and then you've got to get out of there because the day needs to start. You're not really consciously thinking about the majority of things you do. Most of us don't consciously eat. We shove food in our mouth and chew it and swallow it. But you don't sit there and actually really taste the food or, think about what you're doing. Buying, I used to work for a food retailer here in the UK. I mean, I learned a lot about psychology when I worked there because, where they place products in a supermarket, there is a whole psychology and science behind product placement, even product placement in films. Like, for example, I'm a massive Apple fan, right? I got an Apple Mac. That's what I'm recording all of this on. And you'll find Apple Macs and Apple phones and stuff will all appear in films. That's not by accident. That's not by accident. That's called product placement, because big brands know that when they, place their products somewhere, they don't have to directly sell them to you, but your unconscious mind picks up on, oh, look, there's an Apple product there. Consciously, you don't realize it. It's just a moment of time. But there's so much. Human beings are habitual. 10 to 20,000 patterns and programs every day. And so if you sat here listening to this podcast episode thinking that you are a logical human being that takes conscious thought and conscious choice and conscious decisions over the majority of things you do, I'm here to tell you don't. There are times you will. The majority of the time you are on autopilot. People sleep their way through life. Honestly. And I want you not to be one of those people. I want you to take inspired action. I want you to set really good goals. I want you to really, really make a difference. And this brings me back to the iceberg, because if you think you are just a conscious, logical human being, then you're going to be focusing on using willpower to achieve your goals. And I'm here to tell you that that's not going to get you a goal in the best way. I mean, you may or may not get your goal if you just try to use the power of willpower and conscious thought. As an NLP professional, what I want to do is help you deal with all the stuff that's underneath the waterline of your iceberg that is your mind. And I want to help you change the unconscious programming, the unconscious patterns. I want to help you change the beliefs that you have that are currently getting in your way. I want to help you change the self-sabotage strategies, which some of us are very good at. Listen, I used to be the queen of them, right? So if you've got them, I know what that's like. I want to help you stop playing unhelpful stories from the past about past experiences. Listen, your past experiences make you who you are, and they inform who you are today. But you need to learn to take the lessons from those life experiences and let go of the unresolved emotions that might still be attached to them. If you're still sat here now angry about something that happened to you when you were 10 years old, I'm telling you now, it's not good for your health. I'm telling you now that that's not going to help you be the most successful. And this is what we do with NLP. If you're a follower of this podcast, you will have heard hundreds of times the phrase timeline therapy, because that is one of the key coaching tools that we use to help people. And so all of that stuff plays a part in the success that I have in my life and the success that a number of our students and coaching clients have in their life. Now, you may or may not be aware, and if this is all resonating with you and you're sat here listening to this podcast episode thinking, oh my goodness, I need to sort out my mindset. I need to free myself from the unhelpful stuff from the past. I need to set myself up for success for the future. Then you can do that with me on an NLP practitioner course. We run them live, excuse me, in Cardiff, if you are in the UK and you want to come and train with me live in person. Or in 2023, there are a number of opportunities for you to train with me live online on Zoom. Did you know that? Did you know that we're running a number of courses online in 2023 on Zoom? That means it doesn't matter where in the world you're listening to this podcast, you can now become a certified NLP practitioner with me. We've trained people in the last 12 months from Australia, America, the Philippines, Malaysia. I mean, you name it. We're getting lots of people come train with us. I have the award. If you're watching the video, you can see all my awards over here. But I've got all sorts of awards that I've won over the years. But I am the UK's leading NLP training provider. So people want to train with me from all over the world. All you have to do is go and check out unleashyourpotential.org.uk. So that's unleashyourpotential.org.uk. Get that written down somewhere. And go check out the courses. You can do a 2-day introductory course with me on Zoom. You can do an 8-day NLP practitioner course live with me on Zoom. You can now even become a certified NLP coach or certified master coach with me on Zoom. So you can now do all of my certified courses on Zoom. So if your mindset is holding you back, then come and let me help you. And if you love helping other people, come and learn what I know so that you can help other people do this stuff. So we have a model in NLP called the NLP communication model, which essentially helps us understand how the mind works. Essentially, depending again on which neuroscientist you listen to, upward of 3 million bits of information come into your system in any given moment. The problem is that your mind can't process that amount. And so what happens is that data gets deleted, distorted, and generalized. So a lot of the data that's coming into your system doesn't even consciously register with you. And that does often, you will distort, you will morph the data to meet the story you tell yourself. And you will generalize. So you will go, well, piece of information A, B, and C was present last time, and it's present here again. So by default, E is going to be what happens because it happened last time, like metaphorically, right? And our mind is very, very good at filtering information coming into our system and sifting that information such that we find the information that meets the story we tell ourselves. I say this hundreds of times on our trainings in our practitioner courses. Your mind will always find the information in your environment to back up the story you tell yourself. So if you're sat here right now wanting to set yourself a goal for 2023, but you have an old story you're telling yourself, your mind is going to filter the information coming into you in that way. I do quite a lot of presentation coaching in my coaching business. I coach executives in improving presentations. And I always say to them, there's a rule of thirds whenever you present. And again, forgive me, I don't know who said this, but this is what I say. There's a rule of thirds. In any given audience, there'll be a third of people that will listen to what you've got to say and they'll love you no matter what. So there'll be a third of you guys listening to this podcast episode, third of you love me no matter what I say, and I love you too, right? Feelings mutual. Big kisses to you. There will be a third of people that no matter what I say will never be convinced. Listen, I love you too, but there's a third of you will never be convinced. And then there'll be a third that sit on the fence and could go either way. It's called the rule of thirds when we present. If I run a program in my head that says that I'm a great presenter and I'm engaging, I'm charismatic, I'm inspirational, people love me, which third of the audience do you think gets my attention? The third that are smiling, looking engaged, and loving what I'm saying, regardless of what I'm saying. Well, what if, though, I'm running a set of programs in my head that say I'm a rubbish presenter? I can't present. Why would anybody want to listen to me? I'm going to see the people in the audience that are not looking interested. They're bored. They're looking out the window. They're playing on their phone. They're not answering my questions. They're not engaging with the content. And I will see that third, and I will feed myself unconsciously that information to tell myself, you see, it's true, I'm a rubbish presenter. Rubbish presenter. There you go. See, I know. Because your mind filters information all the time. You have to understand this about your mind. And it's not doing this to trip you up. It's doing it because 3 million bits of information are coming into your mind in any moment, and it can't cope with that. So it has to go on autopilot. Now, depending on what research you read, some people say it's 3 million, some say it's 7 million, some say 21 million, whatever. It's a big number of bits of data coming into your system in every moment. Your mind can process 7 plus or minus 2. Some people now say it's 21 plus or minus 7. Whatever number you want to pick. I love research because as soon as someone publishes a bit of research, someone else is just around the corner ready to say that's wrong. So, but whatever number you pick, those two numbers are substantially different. It is these three filters that are really important. Now, if you've studied NLP with me, you'll know that there's now further explanation I usually give on the NLP communication model about how information then gets filtered through all your unconscious filters. That then gives an internal representation in your mind. That also has an impact on how you feel, which has an impact on your physiology. And those three things together impact your behavior, your outcomes, and your results. Right now, on the courses, I explain it in more detail. But I want to just come back and look at these three filters. The first three filters, delete, distort, and generalize, because they are controlled, I believe, by something called the reticular activating system, otherwise known as RAS. Now, in easy to understand ways, because if you've ever trained with me or heard me on the podcast, you know I don't do complicated, I only do easy. So in easy to understand ways, what does RAS actually do? Well, I want you to think of RAS, your reticular activating system. I want you to think of RAS as your internal sat nav, okay? Now, if you have a car, you'll probably have a sat nav, and you'll know that if you want to get from wherever your car is currently to a stated destination, you know you have to set the sat nav and put the postcode in, or the zip code, or the street or town name. Yes? And you know that if you put in the postcode for the destination where you want to go, you know your car's going to work out how to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. Yeah. And it usually will either do it based on the shortest route, the fastest route, the most economic route. Depends how your sat nav sets up. RAS does that for your goals. So what happens is you are, let's say, at the start line of your little 100-meter sprint, metaphorically, between where you are now and where your goal is and what you want to achieve. And we want to use your mindset to help you get your goal. And this is where RAS comes in, because RAS controls the delete, distort, and generalize filters. Now, there's all sorts of different views as to what is RAS, like where does it actually sit in the body? Some people think it's like a hairnet of electrical networks that go over the top of your brain. I mean, to be honest, I don't really care where it is. I just want to use that. I want to take advantage of my RAS. I want to take advantage to help me get my goals. Because if you have a goal, you have your stated destination, whatever that is for you. What RAS will do is it will have an influence over how your mind filters information. And if there is a choice to be had between option A and option B, if option A helps you get to your goal faster, it's going to take A and it's not going to take B. But if you don't have a goal, then you are not using the full capability and the wonderful power of your unconscious mind and your mindset to help you achieve more in your life. If you're the jellyfish, then you don't have a goal, therefore RAS can't help. I don't know about you, but I want to stack the odds in my favor. I love this quote from Brian Tracy. If you've never heard about Brian Tracy, go look him up. He's a great guy. And he says this: people with clear written goals accomplish far more in a shorter period of time than people without them could ever imagine. People with clear written goals accomplish far more in a shorter period of time than people without them could ever imagine. Do you want to be the salmon or do you want to be the jellyfish? And if you're joining this podcast partway through, that's going to make absolutely no sense to you whatsoever. But if you've been here throughout the podcast episode, you are going to absolutely get what that is all about. Now, the other thing that I want to say before I start sharing some actual goal setting techniques with you. Anyway, listen, I hope this is good, right? I hope you're enjoying like the build up, if you like, to some of these models, because all of this stuff is absolutely critical to the goals. And this is why New Year's resolutions don't work. When you go, oh, I know this year I'm going to lose weight. You know, like there's so much to goal setting if you want to do it well and you actually want to get your goals. Now, there's another thing that I talk about a lot on the NLP practitioner courses, and that is about whether you are focused on your problems or whether you are focused on the outcomes that you want. I remember sitting down with one of my coaching clients, because if you know much about me, you'll know I still have a coaching business. I believe that if I'm going to train other people to be coaches, I should still coach. So I keep my hand in. And I remember sitting down with one of my coaching clients once, and I said to her, so why are you here? Because I don't want my life to be like it is. Why else are you here? Because I want your help to change it. Okay, and why else are you here? Because I'm miserable. Why else are you here? because I don't know what else to do. And this was the chain of, now, if you're a master coach and a master practitioner with us, you'll know that that is the first question that we ask in a breakthrough session, to basically peel away the layers of the onion, if you like, to get to the real reason why someone wants coaching and the real problem, so that we can help them to make progress and achieve that goal. But if you notice, all of the things I just said were all focused on what she didn't want. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. And I'm going to let you into a secret about your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind cannot process the word not. And so when you say to me, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, there's obviously don't includes a not. Yeah, just so we're clear. Don't include a not. So when you say I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, if you do nothing about that, or take inspired action, or set a decent goal about what you do want, I don't want to be in this relationship. I'll tell you now, I'd bet 20 quid with you that in 12 months' time, you're still in the same relationship, because what you're actually telling your unconscious mind, this powerful part of your mind that controls your behavior and your action, you're telling it that you want to be there. Let me give you a non-goal related example. So many of you will be able to relate to having small children. So let's say we're walking down the street and I say to the small child next to me, don't run across the road. Odds on, they're going to run across the road, because you've just told them what you don't want them to do. Now, what I say to people when we're talking about language, and there's so much in NLP about language, but one of the things I say about language is, rather than telling people what you don't want them to do, why don't you tell them what you do want to do? In the example of the child walking down the side of the road with me, and I say, don't run across the road, and then they run across the road, then I get angry and frustrated with them because they did the one thing I told them not to do. No, I need to take responsibility. I need to be at cause for what's just happened, and I need to do things differently. And what I need to do next time is use what we call in NLP positive directionalized language. Say it the way you want it. So in the example of the small child, rather than saying don't run across the road, I need to say stay here with me and hold my hand. Tell them what you do want them to do. The same goes for your goals. If your goals are all focused on the problem and what you don't want in your life, you are already tripping yourself up in the achievement of any goal. You've got to flip it on its head. And the easiest way to reframe this, we do lots of reframing in NLP, but the easiest way to reframe something that you don't want is to ask yourself, what do you want instead? So if I'm talking to my coaching client and I'm saying to, so why are you here? Because I'm miserable. Okay, so what do you want instead? I instantly have a focus now, don't I, on what I do, what she does want, and what I'm going to help her to achieve. Let me give the other example. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. Okay, so what relationship do you want to be in? Because it's time, people, to stop avoiding the things that you don't want in your life and start taking action towards the things that you do want. You need to become outcome focused. You need to become outcome focused. What do, what do you want in your life? This is what you've got to do, right? This is what you've got to do. You've got to become outcome focused. Now, listen, I could spend the rest of this podcast episode talking about principles behind goal setting. And I hope that all the things I've covered so far in this episode have started to help you to get an appreciation of some of the background work that needs to be done in great goal setting. Your mindset is key. Getting out of your own way is key. Utilizing your unconscious mind is key. Utilizing RAS is key. All of these things. But what I want to do now is start talking techniques, because I'm conscious that if you've ever listened to the episodes I've done before with the deep dives of just me, you'll know that they're always long episodes. But I want to give you loads of value. I want to help you. I want to help you get success in your life, whatever success means to you. And these are some of the things I do for myself. These are some of the things I do for my clients. And it's the stuff I teach and share on our certified NLP courses. And so these are the things I want to talk about. Now, first of all, I want to share with you something called the 5 Principles to Success. So this is one of the handouts that is available for this episode. So if you are online watching this now, I'm really sorry you can't have this because I haven't released it yet. If you are listening to the podcast episode, just go to nlptalks.com. That is nlptalks.com. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage and you'll find this episode, the goal setting episode. Click on there and all the links to all the handouts that I'm about to share with you will all be there. So go check that out. Now, Tad James, as I said, the head of the ABNLP, the governing body I train under, did a lot of research into what makes successful people successful. And he looks at all sorts of models of success. And he said you can actually boil down success down to 5 key principles in any area of your life. So this is the precursor to any goal setting I ever do for myself or any of the clients I ever work with. Okay. So this is the precursor. And so what I do with my coaching clients is I give them this and I tell them to hand it out, or a version of this. And I tell them to stick it somewhere like on their office or somewhere that they're going to see it every single day. I'll never forget. I'll tell you a funny story. I'll never forget. I was coaching a lady once in a beautiful hotel not far from where I live. And it was our, I think, second or third coaching session that I'd done with her. And she opened up her laptop to show me something. And in the bottom right-hand corner was a tiny little sticker of a little bunny rabbit. And she laughed as she opened up her laptop because she'd realized that this bunny rabbit was there. And she looks at me and she looks at the bunny rabbit on her laptop and she points to it. And she said, I guess you've just seen that. And I said, yes. She said, would you like to know what it means? So I said, well, go on. She said, well, I stole it off my daughter. I said, oh, okay, fair enough. I hope she is okay with that. She said, oh, yeah, she was fine. Mummy, you can have the rabbit. That's fine. And she said, and I stuck it on my laptop. She said, because it reminds me of 2 things. 1, it reminds me of the 5 principles to success and the 5 things I have to focus on. And it also reminds me of my goal. And that is in my peripheral vision all day, every day. She's using the same psychology that the filmmakers use when they make films, the same psychology I talked about earlier in supermarkets. Like, it's in her peripheral vision. It's being soaked up by her unconscious mind every moment that she is on that laptop. And I was like, do you know what? That's a really funky thing to do. So you might not actually put the 5 principles up somewhere. You might actually boil it down to something smaller. So I'm just going to show you that those of you that are watching this live here in the office, let me take it off the wall. I have this little image. Now I'm just going to read it out for the purpose of those listening on a podcast. And this image, just to describe it, is essentially an archery board with some archery arrows in the middle of it. And it says, is this moving me towards or away from my goal? And I have this in my office. I've just grabbed it off my wall and I have this in my office so that I can see it. And every single time I start to waver from inspired action towards any of my goals, I ask myself the question, is what I'm now about to do or what I'm doing moving me towards my goal or away from my goal? And if it's moving me away from my goal, it's time to not do that. It's time to delegate it. It's time to either just not do it, give it to someone else, do it another day. But if it is moving me towards my goal, then I got the green light to keep going. And this is on my board. I've never shared this before ever, but this is on my board in my office. In fact, actually, I'm gonna give that to you as one of the giveaways for this episode. So I'm gonna give you this, and you can print it out and you can stick it on your wall, right? So again, any of the documents I'm referring to today, go to nlptalks.com, go find the goal setting episode, and all the links to all these things I'm talking about are going to be there. So I'm just going to take that off my board and leave it there to remind me to put that in the episode for you. So 5 principles to success. Let's go. Okay. So either write these down or print them off or whatever floats your boat. So Tad said 5 principles of success are these. 1, know your outcome. What specifically do you want? Now, the more specific, the better. I want to lose weight. It's too ambiguous. It's also focused on what you don't want. So if a client says to me, I want to lose weight, I'm going, okay, that's great. But what do you want? Well, I want to be fitter. I want to be healthier. I want to have more energy. Okay, great. Now we're talking about what you do want. Now, specifically, what do you want? Well, I want to be able to run the marathon next year. I want to be able to whatever. You see, you notice the difference in the language, right? Just changing the language makes a difference. But absolutely be focused on what you want and as specifically as possible. Dates, times, amounts, that kind of stuff. Principle number 2 is take action. Do something about it every single day. You have to build the muscle memory of taking action. You have to develop the habit of taking action every single day towards this goal. If you're saying that this goal is the one big thing you want to achieve this year, then you've got to work on it every single day. Now, sometimes that might be a 5 or a 10-minute Google while you're having a cup of tea. Sometimes it might be a half a day's concerted piece of work on a day off that you've got, like up here in the office. I mean, technically it's my day off, but I'm here doing a podcast episode with you guys because I love helping. So you have to take action every single day, and you need to get to the habits, get the muscle memory of action every single day. Number 3, notice if what you're happening is working. So we call it having sensory acuity, but in everyday terms, what it means is what you're doing working? Are you on the right track? Is what you're doing working? And you need to pay attention, right? Just because I might have set a goal of I don't know, running a marathon next year, which by the way is not my goal, but if it was, then and I join a gym because I think running on a treadmill is the way to teach me how to run and be able to run long distances. But if it's not working and I'm not going to the gym, I need to pay attention. I need to be self-aware enough to know that this strategy is not working. And that leads me very nicely into principle number 4, which is have behavioral flexibility. If what you're doing is not working, guess what? Change it. Do something different. So over the years, I've coached, I don't know how many people I've coached and trained, hundreds, probably thousands by now. And one of the things that I find so heartbreaking is when I see someone write a really, really good goal. They think they've got a plan and some steps that they want to take in order to get there. Cracking. However, when they start to get going, they don't have sensory acuity. They're not paying attention if what they're doing is working, and they don't have behavioral flexibility. They don't change course if it's not working. Far too many people wed themselves to one way achieving their goal. It's either this way or not at all. That, folks, I'm telling you, is how not to achieve a goal, right? It's how not to achieve a goal. What you've got to do is give yourself the opportunity to do this. There are many ways I could teach myself to run. If you know much about me, if you do follow me on Instagram, Laura Evers _NLP. And if you do follow me on Instagram, you'll know I love the countryside. I love walking my dog. I love being by the sea. Actually, behavioral flexibility. If running at the gym is not floating my boat, then let's go run in the countryside because I'm going to love looking at those views. This is what behavioral flexibility is, folks. If there is only one way to achieve your goal, then I don't think it's a good goal. So do that. And then number 5, work from a place of physiology and psychology of excellence. Basically, what that means to you and me is get your mindset in the right place for this goal and your body physically in the right place to achieve this goal. So these are the 5 principles to success. Forget any type of coaching, so any type of goal setting method. If you just start adopting these principles behind any type of goal that you might have written, I can tell you now, you're going to increase the chances of getting your goal. So go and get this download, go and print it off, and then you will be able to make progress. Now, I'm going to share with you a process which I heard Brian Tracy talk about a long time ago. And I quoted him earlier on, and I think I like Brian Tracy. I like a lot of what he's got to say. One of his quotes is, "Nothing can stop you but yourself." And that's absolutely true. Absolutely. The only thing that stops you is you, your beliefs, your old strategies, your old sabotage strategies, your story you tell yourself, all the things I've been talking about so far in this episode. And that's the only thing that can stop you. Nothing can stop you but you. So this is what Brian Tracy suggests you do. Okay. Now I'm going to walk you through this process. I'm going to suggest you get a bit of paper right now, wherever you are. And I'm going to suggest that you do this as a live exercise, because what I know is this: if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. Right. So pause the episode if you need to and come back to this. But I want you to get a bit of paper and I want you to get a pen. Okay. And I'm going to take you through the Brian Tracy method of setting a goal. So first thing he says you have to do is take a clean sheet of paper. So hopefully you've got that organized, and write the word goals at the top of that piece of paper and put today's date on it, so you know what day you did this. And he says what you should then do is write down 10 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 12 months. So 10 goals that you would like to accomplish in the next 12 months, but write them down in the present tense. So I earn X amount. I drive this car. I own this. I weigh this much. I achieve this much. But it's 10 goals, quickly written down, brainstorm on a piece of paper, but written in the present tense. So he likes to do it with an I statement. So I achieve, I earn, I drive, I weigh, I own, I am, whatever. I am, by the way, one of the most powerful statements that you can ever say to yourself, both positively and negatively, carries a lot of weight in your unconscious mind. I am awesome is a good one. I am useless is not a good one. So make sure that you do that. So if you need a few moments to do that, then pause this podcast episode and get those 10 things written down. And if you've already done it, then here's the next step. He says, what you then need to do is take the list and say to yourself, if you had a magic wand, wouldn't that be cool? But if you had a magic wand and you could wave that magic wand and you could have any one goal on that list in the next 24 hours, which one would have the greatest positive impact on my life? Isn't this a way to prioritize? So you look at your list of 10 that you've got written down, and you say to yourself, if I had a magic wand and I could have one of these things tomorrow within the next 24 hours, what one thing on this page will have the greatest positive impact on my life? Now, usually that thing will jump out of you off the page. I know it did for me. I did this a couple of weeks ago and I was like, oh my goodness, I know exactly which one I want to work on. And he says, then this becomes your goal for now. He says, you get a clean sheet of paper and you write that goal at the top of a fresh piece of paper. So remember, always state in the positive tense. And obviously today's date, because it's the date you wrote it. And then he says you follow these steps. So first of all, you need to write it down specifically, as I've just been saying. What do you want? And describe that. When you do it, it looks a bit like a description like of a movie scene. It's almost like you're talking about what you do want, what you want to focus on. He says you then need a deadline. So when do you want this by? So for example, it is the 1st of January 2023. No, so we've done that, Laura. I'm in the wrong year. The 1st of January 2024. And then you're talking about what you have got, what you have achieved, all in the present tense. Then he says you need to make a list of, as you are now doing this goal, make a list of everything that you need to do to accomplish that goal. Make a list of everything. So do a little bit of brainstorming and get a bit of paper and just write down everything you think you need to do in order to do that. Then organize that list. Okay, so you're going to need to pause this episode to be able to do this. So you're going to brainstorm every single thing that you need to do to accomplish it. And then you organize that list into some kind of sensible structure. And then you take action and you do something every day. Doesn't that fit with the 5 principles to success? Like the Brian Tracy model, one of the gurus in the personal development world, absolutely fits Tad's model of the 5 principles to success. I just couldn't believe it when I saw it. And I did this, like I say, a couple of weeks ago for myself. And that one thing jumped off the page straight away. And I was like, that is what I'm going to write the goal about. Now, if you're training NLP with me, what you'll know is we now go on to do something called the Keys to Achievement Outcome, which I'm going to come on to. However, I just want to stop for a moment. Has anybody read the book, The Horse, the Boy, the Fox, and the Mole? Anybody read that book? Here in the UK over Christmas, the BBC made it into a little program, I guess. I can't think of the right word. And I saw it at Christmas, and it's probably still on iPlayer if you're watching this or listening to this like in January. I'm going to guess it's probably still there, but don't hold me to it. And oh my God, I was in tears. I was in absolute tears. It is like the most brilliant personal development program without being about personal development. And there is one scene in there where the boy and the horse, I think they're in the woods. And the little boy is saying to the horse, but I can't see a way through. And the horse has got ancient wisdom as far as I'm concerned, but the horse turned around and says, can you see the next step? And the little boy goes, yes. Then just take the next step. And I just thought it was just brilliant, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed with goals and see this great big list of all the things you need to do. And actually, you don't need to do everything today, but what you do need to do is something today. And you just need to take that next step. And then you're away. You're away. And if there's a whole thing. And if you're into sports psychology, you'll be aware of marginal gains. And the principle of marginal gains is 1% better today than yesterday. I mean, it's a bit more complicated than that, but you know me, simple terms. 1% better than yesterday. And that's what we're after. One step every day. And sometimes it'll be a big step and sometimes it'll be a little shuffle. And that's all good, because you've got yourself in the habit of doing that. Now, if you want to, I have another handout which you will find on the NLP Talks website called Your Compelling Future. And this is just a piece of paper that gives you a bit of a framework to be able to start to capture what this goal might be. And it's a blank piece of paper for those of you that are not watching the video version of this. It's a blank piece of paper. And so that is there for you. And then also what is there for you is a worksheet. Now, this is top secret. And I have only ever shared this on the actual goal setting workshop that I used to run. But I'm going to share it with you all here on the podcast. This is also on nlptalks.com. And like I say, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, find the episode on goal setting, and you're going to find this workshop here. This is designed to help you to do the process I'm about to talk you through, okay, which is called the Keys to Achievable Outcome. And so that's what we're going to do. So as I'm talking it through, you're probably going to want to go and get that. And if you don't like forms and you don't like structure and you just want to do it the way you want to do it, then just listen to the episode and do it your way. So there are 9 steps or 9 keys, as we call it, to achievable outcome in NLP. And if you have done your NLP practitioner course with me, I will have taught you these. Excuse me, I would taught these to you in detail. So you will know exactly how to write a goal. But I'm just going to pre-see it and give you some headlines here on the podcast, because I want you to get your goal in 2023. And I'm here to help and serve you. So this is what I want to do. So, okay, so basically, there are various schools of thought as to where this model came from, and it will be a whole discussion to have about where it came from. So I'm not proposing to do that today, but just accept that this is the way, certainly we in the ABNLP, and certainly in my training school, this is how we rewrite a goal. Now, when I first discovered it, bearing in mind, I used to work in HR, as many of you know, and I used to do a lot of management development training. What you will know, what you won't know, sorry. Laura, start again. So you'll know I used to work in HR if you know me or follow my story. But I used to do management development training. And in management development training, we called this type of goal setting backward goal setting. Which sounds a bit weird, but bear with me, because that's what we used to call it, backward goal setting. So what you do with this type of goal, when you want to make it really tangible and you want to be the salmon swimming up the river and not the jellyfish, to use the metaphor from the beginning of this episode, what we do is we write it like a narrative. So imagine this for a moment. You take the movie screen, which is your life, okay? And imagine your life is on the movie screen in front of you. You're going to fast forward the movie that is your life to the point at time in the future when you will have achieved your goal. And you describe what's going on in that scene of the movie of your life, okay? So it sounds a little bit weird, right? But I promise you it works really well. So you describe it as if you already have it. You describe it at that point in time. And that's how it works. Now, I didn't print it off, but what I will also do as a bonus for this episode is I will put an example of a well-written goal as a handout. Let me just make a note of that, because by the time I do the website page for you all, I will forget. So example of well Written goal. Okay, cool. And now remind me to do that for you all. So this is going to be on the website. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, it'll already be there. If you're watching this live as I'm recording it, then I'm sorry, it's not there yet. But I will put that in there as well. But when you read that example, you'll realize that what the person did was they wrote their goal at a point in time for a time that had not yet happened in the future. And she described the house that she wanted, the size of the room, the colors, and she more or less got that goal. So I'm going to take that example out of the NLP practitioner course manual, which I have, and I'm going to let you have that as an example. So you know what good looks like, yeah, and you know what you're aiming for then. So this will help you with writing a good goal. Okay, so let's go then. So step number 1 to the 9 keys to achievable outcome. Number 1, stated in the positive, what do you want? What specifically, right? So we've talked about that already, covered, tick. Step 2, specify the present situation. Where are you now? So when they did this study of people that wrote their goals this way, they noticed that there was a reference back to the time when they wrote their goal. So say I'm writing the goal today at the point of recording this, the 14th of January, 2023, and this goal is due to come to fruition on the 1st of September, 2023. I write and I start my goal by saying it is the 1st of September, 2023, and then I start describing this movie scene. But at some point in that goal, we will go back and we'll make reference to when I wrote my goal back on the 14th of January, 2023, and recall the first step. And that phrasing goes in. You'll see this in the example when you go and have a look at it. Number 3, specify the outcome. So this is everything that SMART is not. If you, like me, grew up in the business world, you'll know all about SMART objectives. And for many years, I had to wax lyricals about how great SMART was. Now I can say I don't like it. And I can say it because it's now my own business. The problem with SMART is the issue is around realistic and achievable because according to whom? Here in the UK, we had a guy called Roger Banniston, I can't remember his surname, who did something called running the 4-minute mile. And lots of people attempted to do that before he did. And then all of a sudden he did it, and then everybody believed it was possible. And so this is the problem with SMART. SMART only, in my view, has any kind of purpose whatsoever for very, very minutiate, specific, task-orientated goals, which is what your objectives might be if you're at work. They don't work for life goals or the type of goals I want to help people with. So we avoid SMART like the plague. When we're doing this type of goal, we do everything that SMART is not. SMART teaches you to strip everything out and write it in as few words as what possible and write it really clinically. Let me tell you, folks, your unconscious mind, the powerhouse that helps you take action and controls your behavior, it does not do SMART. Okay, it doesn't do SMART. It doesn't do detail. It doesn't do all of that, that kind of stuff. It works in abstract concepts. So what we're doing by writing our goal in this way is we're basically creating what we call in NLP an internal representation of the goal. If you're into NLP, you'll know what that means. If it's not, you're basically painting a picture. You're saying to your unconscious mind, this is what you want. Remember I talked earlier about RAS and setting the internal sat nav. That's essentially, you're saying, this is what I want. This is where I want you to take me, unconscious mind. I want you to make choices that help me achieve this. So that's what we're going to do. So you'll notice that in the goal, she talks about where she is, who she's with, all that kind of stuff. So you need to fill in the color of this scene of the movie. Who are you with? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? I have one goal, because you can have multiple goals, by the way, but one of my goals is I'm outside my farmhouse, which I want to own eventually. I want to, my big goal for my house and my life is to be living in an old farmhouse close to the coast where I can hear and see the sea last thing at night and first thing in the morning. And I have a particular scene in my goal that I describe, which is me being stood out the front of garden, sipping Prosecco, which is in my goal. I'm not sure if I'll still be drinking Prosecco then, but that's a whole other conversation. You'll always get your goal within a margin of error. 2 to 5% is the error rate on these types of goals. So I'll be drinking something, that's for sure. And I'm smelling the roses, and I've got the 2 dogs with me, and my husband's there, and all of those things that I'm describing, like you describe, paint the picture. Your unconscious mind will love it. Number 4 of the keys is specifying the evidence procedure. So how will you know you've got it or not? So if your goal includes a financial number, then that number needs to be in there. By the way, we always ask for a little bit more than we actually want because of the margin of error, as I just said, between 2 and 5%. So if you want a salary that's giving you a take-home pay of £2,500 a month, then I would ask for 3 to be sure you get your 2.5, if that makes sense. I did a goal for when I wanted to become an NLP trainer, and I needed 80%, I think it was, to pass the exam. If I had asked for 80% and I'd missed that by a margin of 2 to 5%, then I would have potentially been a difference between passing and failing. So I asked for 100% of my unconscious mind, and I got 98%. I mean, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just telling you there's a margin of error. And of course, I vastly exceeded mine and anyone else's expectation for a pass mark on what is a 7-hour closed book exam. So I was super chuffed with that. Cool. So 1 to 4 help you write it. So once you have then written it, 5 to 9 help you to really start to work out whether you've done a great job of writing the goal and if there's anything you need to tweak. So number 5 is it concretely desirable? So you ask yourself that question, is it concretely desirable? Can I have it all? Is there any conflict between what I'm asking for? So for example, if I want to run a £1 million business, which I don't, by the way, but if I did a £1 million business and I want to have 50 weeks of annual leave a year and I only want to work 2 weeks out of 52, I mean, I don't care how many times you read the 4-hour working week, that book, you ain't going to be doing it in my model of the world. So yes, so that would be what I would call an incongruence. You're asking for 2 things in your goal which are actually not compatible. So this is what we mean by congruently desirable. 6 is making sure that goal is self-initiated and self-maintained. So is it for you and you alone? Your goal is only ever for you. Remember, you come into this life with one person and you leave with one person. The only person that is in the driving seat of your life is you. So this has to be something that you can do. And it has to be just for you. You can have goals that are aligned with your life partner or colleagues that you work with, or you can do that, but they're aligned. They're not one goal for everyone. Everybody must write their own. So yeah, I mean, if you want a goal that's house orientated and you want, I mean, let's keep the maths easy. Let's say it's a £1 million house, and you've got £250,000 equity. It's mortgaged to 50%. Then your partner puts in 250,000. You can't write about your partner's 250,000 because as much as you might like to tell them what to do with their money, the truth is they have to make that decision for themselves. So you would write a goal about living in a £1 million house where you have £250,000 equity and it is mortgaged to 50%, assuming, of course, your name's on the mortgage. So this is what I mean by self-initiated and self-maintained. It is just about the things you can influence. They are your actions. They are your things that you're going to do. And so that is what self-initiated and self-maintained. Basically, you've got to get up off your posterior, and you've got to make this thing happen, and you've got to keep taking action to make it happen. 7, key 7 is it appropriately contextualized? Where, when, how, with whom do you want it? So have you put enough color in? Have you really contextualized it? Is it really clear for your unconscious mind where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're eating, all of that good stuff? Number 8, what resources do you need? Now, you do not need those resources right now. Let me be clear. You do not need those resources right now. What you do need, though, is to have a plan about how you're going to come by them. Now, let's just stop for a minute and make sure we're clear on what I mean by resources, because resources are not just time and money. They're the obvious ones. And yes, you'll want to think about them, but they're just the obvious ones. What we are really talking about, though, are all the resources that we have as human beings. So we have an ability to learn. We have an ability to make decisions, to decide. We have the power of choice. These are all resources that we have as human beings. So you need to think about, what resources do I need to be able to achieve this goal? You might need to go on a course and learn something. You might need to sort out your mindset. You might need to generate some money, some capital. You don't have to have the capital right now to be able to write the goal, but you have to have thought about how you're going to come by it. And if you don't currently have it, do you know how you could come by it? So knowledge, for example, like if I was going to run a marathon next year, I don't know about running a marathon. Like, I've never done it. So I don't currently have all the knowledge I need. But could I find that knowledge? Well, yeah, one of my friends runs marathons all the time, and there'll be running coaches I can go and speak to. And so knowledge being a resource, could I go and find that knowledge? Yes, of course I could. And number 9 is ecological. For what purpose do you want this? What will you gain or lose if you have it? So really thinking about that, because if you're going to lose something as a result of achieving this goal, then your unconscious mind is going to need to be okay with that. Now, you'll notice then at the bottom of the page when you go and get this handout, you'll notice there are 4 questions. Now, these are from our master practitioner training. They are what we call Cartesian logic. I'm not going into that today, but that is something that we teach. And all I'm going to say to you for the purpose of goal setting is I want you to ask yourself these 4 questions, and I want you to just see what comes up in your head. And these 4 questions are this: what will happen if you get it, as in your goal? What won't happen if you get it? What will happen if you don't get it? And what won't happen if you don't get it? So let me just say those 4 again. What will happen if you get it? What won't happen if you get it? What will happen if you don't get it? And what won't happen if you don't get it? Now, like I say, these come from Cartesian logic. Essentially, they are a methodology that originally you can trace back to some nuns, actually, which is quite interesting. That's for another podcast. But then quantum physics got hold of them, and they now appear within the quantum linguistics section of the master practitioner course that I teach. And it all sounds very impressive, but it's essentially a way of looking at a theorem, as you would call it in quantum physics, or a postulation, or basically anything. And if you want to look at it from 4 different angles, it's quite a thorough way of doing it. It's much better than, for example, doing pros and cons, which if you grew up like I did, being taught to do pros and cons, it's much better and much more effective than that. And those of you trained as master practitioners NLP will know that that last one, what won't happen if you don't get it, is affectionately referred to as a not pattern. Its official title is a non-mirror image reverse inductive language pattern. Yes, I know, right? Let me say it again. A non-mirror image reverse inductive language pattern. Nobody calls it that. That's its official title. It's often referred to as a not because it has 2 knots in. Anyway, that's for another podcast. Now, the well-formed outcome worksheet is a worksheet that is designed to help you. So basically, this is how I would use these handouts when you go and download them. So I would have your, I'd maybe do my Brian Tracy exercise first to pick the one big thing I want to work on. And I probably do that first. That's certainly what I did this year. Then I would just check in with the keys at the 5 principles to success, get your head around those. Then I would grab the blank piece of paper or the compelling future template. And then I would probably have a little bit of a go at writing something out around that goal. Or I would grab the NLP well-formed outcome sheet and use that to structure my thinking and then write it out. And then I would make sure that what I'm writing out is in line with the keys to achievable outcomes. So there are so many bonuses to this podcast episode. I've been too generous. No, I haven't. I give them to you with love and pleasure. I did this episode, and I'm conscious that it's become a very, very long podcast episode, but I wanted this to be useful for you. Like, I want you to get your goals. I want you to get success in your life. I want to stack the odds in your favor. I want you to understand how your mind works. I want you to be able to utilize the power of your unconscious mind. And I want us all to live the life we dream of, because we are able to make progress towards the things that we want. Remember, be the salmon or the tuna fish, not the jellyfish. There are too many jellyfish in this world. I know I used to be one of them. Thank goodness I saw the light. I'm going to leave you with 5 top tips to achieving your goal this year. 5 top tips. Based on everything I've covered in today's podcast episode. And please drop me an email. Let me know. Did you like this episode? I really hope that you did. Drop us an email, info@unleashyourpotential.org.uk. info@unleashyourpotential.org.uk. Drop me an email. Let me know. I want to hear. Have you set a goal? Did you like the episode? If you're watching this live in the Facebook group, drop a comment below. Let me know. If you are watching this on YouTube, drop a comment below. Let me know. But I just get so excited about goal setting. When done well, it absolutely will change the course of your life, in my view. When done well, it will absolutely help you get success. So here are my final top tips, just to wrap up today's podcast episode. Number one, pick only one goal to work on at a time when you're doing this process. I've told you I've got more than one. If you're trained in NLP, what you'll know is that, and timeline therapy, is that once we have what I call cleaned the timeline, got rid of the negative emotions from the past, we can put in more than one goal into a timeline. Your unconscious mind has the capacity to work on more at the same time. That is not the type of approach I've taken today in this podcast episode. So if you're using your knowledge from this podcast episode, I would just work on one myself. 2, baby steps every single day. Take action every single day. Make it a habit that you take action every day towards your goal. Number 3, hold yourself accountable for the things that you want to change and what you want to achieve. Tell others and write it down. Here is my top tip for accountability. 2, actually. I'm going to give you 2 top tips. 1, get an accountability buddy. So accountability buddy, 2 of you that have set a goal in this way, both listen to this podcast episode and then check in every week or every fortnight with each other. Have a little WhatsApp group and say, what action have you taken today? What action have you taken today? When you get up against a blockage, how can I help you get past the blockage, right? Get accountability. And then the other one is a top tip was shared with me by a gentleman called James Lavers, who was my coach back in 2017. And he said there is one surefire way to make yourself accountable for any decision which you take, particularly around goals. He said, is there someone in your life, Laura, that you would never break a promise to? And I was like, yes. He said, then I want you to go and promise that person that you are going to get this goal this year. Because if you would never break a promise to that person, and you're about to promise to do this goal, and you're telling me you'd never break a promise, you've just significantly increased your chances of getting this goal. I just loved it. And I tell everybody to do that. All my coaching clients, find someone you'd never break a promise to and promise them you're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to get this goal this year. You're going to take action every single day. You're going to do the 5 principles to success. This, my friends, is how you increase the success in your life and your goals. My top tip number 4 is focus on the carrot, not the stick. Okay. If you have done NLP training with me, you'll know about away from motivation as opposed towards motivation. Maybe that's a podcast for the next series. But you want to reward yourself for taking positive action. Use the carrot on yourself, not the stick. If you're anything like I used to be before my NLP training, I was very good at mentally beating myself up. If I didn't take action, I would mentally beat myself up. Please, folks, let's not do that. Let's learn every day and let's be positive and encouraging and nurturing of ourselves. If you are the type of person that is hugely critical of yourself in your head, you say things to yourself that you would never say to anybody else, then you know I'm talking to you. Please use the carrot, incentivize yourself. So set yourself little tasks. That's what I do. And then when I do them, I treat myself. So if you follow me on Instagram, as I've said, Laura_Evans_NLP, you will know that I love going to the spa. Absolutely live for going to the spas. I have all sorts of friends that I take to the spas, and they're my treats. They're how I treat myself. They are how I reward myself for doing the things that I need to do. In fact, in a moment, now I've got this episode recorded, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to go for a walk on the beach. I'm going to reward myself for doing the thing that's been on my to-do list for a couple of weeks. And number 5, surround yourself with people that are on the same journey with you, or those that you know are your cheerleaders. None of us can do this on our own. We all need cheerleaders by our side. One of my coaching clients said to me just this week, I had a coaching call on Wednesday with them. And the message that I got was, do you know what? I will be forever grateful for having you in my corner. And that's what I am when I'm a coach. I'm in your corner. I am there. I will cheer you on from the sidelines. I say this to all the students on my NLP practitioner courses. I will forever be your cheerleader. I will forever be on the sideline cheering you on, and celebrating your successes with you, because I know how important it is to have the right support when you set off to achieve any goal. And that, my friends, is the deep dive podcast episode into setting and achieving your goals. I sincerely hope that the last hour and a half of this podcast, and it is a long one, grant you, but I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed this episode, that you have learned something in this episode, and that you are going to take inspired action towards a particular goal this year. Action every day. Remember the principles of success. Know what you want specifically. Inspired action every single day. Sensory acuity is what you're doing working. Behavioral flexibility, number 4, if it's not, do something different. And 5, get yourself with the right mindset and also physically in the right place to achieve your goal. And my folks, this is how I have managed to become as successful as I have in my life, in my business. And I'm not saying I'm a finished article, far from it. I say this all the time on the courses. I am not perfect. I am not the finished article. I don't believe we're ever done with personal development. But what I do is I focus on success, and I focus on taking steps every single day. So this episode comes to you wherever you are in the world with lots of love and best wishes for the most successful 2023. Make it your best year yet. That is my dream and my desire for you. I've just given you a deep dive session in how to put the odds in your favor. I sincerely hope you do something with this. If you want to come and you want to learn NLP properly with me, then the NLP practitioner course is what I'm going to encourage you to do. Remember, I said partway through this episode, you can now come and do the NLP practitioner course live with me in Cardiff. If you want to come hang out with me, I would love to hang out with you. So you can do that. And you can also do it online now on Zoom. So that means that I can now train you to become a certified NLP practitioner from the comfort of your home or office. And it would be my pleasure to hang out with you on Zoom, and actually get to meet some more of our podcast listeners. If you're listening to this episode because you have already done a certified NLP practitioner course and I have recommended that you come and listen to this episode, then well done on taking inspired action, and being here and further upskilling yourself and doing this as CPD, continuing professional development, which if you know me, you know I'm a massive fan of. And this, my friends, is the final episode of Series 6. It has been my absolute pleasure to deliver Series 6 for you. Watch out, because there will be a roundup episode which will be coming out very shortly that will summarize every single episode in this series. So if this is the first time that you've ever listened to my podcast, welcome. And you've caught me on the last episode of Series 6, but listen to the final episode where I'm going to summarize the whole of Series 6 for you, so you can go back and cherry pick the episodes you want to listen to. As always, you can go to nlpdorks.com and you will find every single podcast episode I have ever released. There's over 50 of them now. We've had over 40,000 downloads, 10,000 in the last year. Then go over to nlptalks.com and go and find the episodes you want to listen to. I love it when people turn up on my courses and they've listened to the podcast. It's always there, full of inspirational stories. If you want to find out about our courses, you go to unleashyourpotential.org.uk. That's unleashyourpotential.org.uk. And if you want to get in contact with us with any questions or to let us have any feedback on the podcast at all, then please email us at info@unleashyourpotential.org.uk. And until next time, take care of you, and I wish you every success for 2023.